I wake to the faint glow of dawn seeping through a narrow slit near the ceiling, the air heavy with the mingled scents of incense and damp stone. The chamber is small and suffocating, its rough walls stained by time, cold marble beneath me pressing against my back. The silence is pierced only by distant whispers, furtive footsteps of servants moving through shadowed corridors, and the faint, metallic clink of chains somewhere beyond these walls. A chill seeps into my bones, though the air is thick and still, as if the palace itself has swallowed all warmth and light. My body aches from the night's restless sleep, muscles stiff from lying on the unforgiving floor. My hands are rough and calloused, evidence of labor I barely remember performing, and faint bruises mar my skin, remnants of harsh discipline or careless handling. I touch my wrist, feeling the slight indent where a shackle once gripped before being removed, a cruel reminder of the chains that bind me, both visible and invisible. My eyes, accustomed to the dimness, scan the room, bare except for a low wooden stool pushed into a corner, a cracked ceramic basin half filled with stale water, and the shadows that seem to cling to every surface. Beyond the chamber door, I hear the muffled voices of eunuchs and servants, their tone sharp and commanding. They speak of the day ahead, of duties and the emperor's presence, their words a grim herald of what waits for me. A sudden sound at the threshold makes me freeze. The heavy door creaks open, revealing a eunuch whose face is a mask of stern authority. His eyes, cold and unyielding, meet mine without a flicker of recognition or compassion. With a curt nod, he orders me to rise and prepare. I obey, every movement mechanical, the weight of countless mornings like this pressing down on me. Each step toward the outer chambers feels heavier than the last, as if my feet are tethered by memories I cannot escape. As I stand, the cold marble floor sends a shiver up my legs, grounding me in this reality that feels more like a nightmare than life. I recall the last time I saw sunlight on open fields, the laughter of my village children, the warmth of my mother's hands. But those are distant echoes now, replaced by the oppressive stone and whispered commands that shape my existence. This place, the imperial palace, is a world apart from the life I once knew. Here, youth and beauty are not blessings but commodities, carefully selected and traded to serve the emperor's desires. I am one among many, chosen not for who I am but for what I can provide, a possession stripped of childhood, freedom, and self. The eunuch's voice cuts through my reverie. Prepare yourself. The emperor expects you. There is no room for hesitation or protest, obedience is survival. I swallow the lump rising in my throat and nod, forcing my feet to carry me forward into the labyrinth of corridors where laughter and whispers mingle with the scent of sandalwood and jasmine. Every step echoes with the weight of history and cruelty. I am reminded that my fate was sealed long before I understood its meaning, selected from a poor village, torn from family by promises of prosperity that turned to chains. The walls here are thick with secrets and shadows, and I am but one small figure swallowed by the vast machinery of the court. The palace is a maze of marble and silk, but behind the grandeur lies a rigid hierarchy that dictates every breath I take. I move forward, eyes lowered, hands clenched at my sides, waiting for the moment when the emperor's gaze will fall upon me, an invisible auctioneer whose favor can mean life or oblivion. As I prepare to face whatever the day holds, a cold certainty settles within me. Here, in this gilded cage, I am no longer a boy. I am property, a silent witness to an empire that values beauty and obedience above all else. The lessons of servitude are etched deep into my flesh and spirit, and I know that beyond these walls, the world will never again see me as anything more than what I have become. The eunuch gestures sharply, and I follow him into the brighter halls where courtiers and attendants move like shadows, their eyes quick to judge and condemn. The distant sound of the emperor's voice reaches me now, a soft murmur laced with command and desire, and I steel myself to meet it, to perform the role demanded by fate and power. Within this palace, every moment is a test, every glance a verdict. I am to be molded, broken, and used. Yet beneath the surface, a fragile ember of hope flickers, dim but persistent, reminding me of a life once lived, a life that might yet linger in memory, even as I am consumed by this endless night. Before the palace walls swallowed me whole, there was a village bathed in sunlight and the earthy scent of tilled soil, a place where my family tilled the land, hoping each season would yield enough to keep hunger at bay. But the seasons betrayed us, one after another. Famine gnawed at our crops, and whispers of war drifted like poison through the air. The fields grew barren, the granaries emptied, the village grew quiet with despair. My father's hands, once steady and sure, trembled as he counted the meager coins scraped together after a harsh winter. The weight of debt pressed down on him heavier than any yoke. The local magistrate, a man cloaked not only in fine robes but also in cold indifference, sent his emissaries with demands that could not be ignored. Payment was expected, not in gold, but in flesh. I remember the day they came for me. The sun was a pale orb behind thick clouds, mirroring the gloom settling in my chest. Village elders gathered, their faces lined with sorrow and resignation, as I stood among a handful of other boys chosen for the same fate. Our futures were decided by the calloused hands of officials whose eyes appraised us as one might assess livestock, looking for strength, beauty, and obedience. There was no room for childhood dreams here, only the cold calculus of survival. The selection was merciless. We were lined up, stripped of our clothes and dignity, inspected like precious goods in a market. The men whispered among themselves, debating our worth with clinical detachment. I felt their eyes measuring every scar, every flaw, every sign of vitality. My heart pounded, a wild bird trapped beneath ribs, desperate to flee an invisible cage. Once chosen, the journey to the capital was a torment of endless roads and harsh nights. Shackled together, we trudged through dust and mud, the sky above an unchanging expanse of grey. Hunger gnawed at our bellies, and thirst cracked our tongues, but the guards showed no mercy. Older boys tried to shield the younger ones, but their own hope was fading, their eyes dull with the weight of despair. I remember the cries that echoed at night, boys calling for mothers who would never answer, for fathers who could not save them. The caravan was a river of sorrow, flowing inexorably toward a city that promised neither kindness nor freedom. Each step peeled away layers of innocence, leaving raw flesh exposed to the cold winds of fate. When we finally arrived, the city's towering walls loomed like a monstrous maw ready to consume us. The markets were a frenzy of noise and color, but we were invisible beneath the throng, mere commodities shuffled and sorted. We were herded into baths, scrubbed clean, and dressed in simple robes that felt like shackles of another kind. Our names were taken from us, replaced by cold titles or numbers. Our pasts were erased, replaced by the identity of property. The officials who received us spoke in clipped tones, their faces masks of bureaucratic efficiency. The grandeur of the palace was a cruel contrast to the hollowness inside me. Marble columns soared overhead, frescoes depicted gods and heroes, but none of it could mask the truth. Here, we were not boys, but vessels for power and pleasure. In the days that followed, I learned the unspoken rules of this new existence. Obedience was currency, silence, a shield. The faces around me were pale, eyes hollow, carrying the same burden of loss and fear. We were prisoners of a system that thrived on our submission, a world where youth was harvested and sold like grain. I caught glimpses of the court's rituals, processions, ceremonies, and feasts where the emperor's favor was displayed like a jewel. Behind the scenes, however, the reality was far darker. The palace was a forge, burning away identities and forging us into tools of desire and control. Each boy was a thread in a vast tapestry woven with cruelty and indifference. I remember the cold touch of the eunuchs who guided us through endless halls, their eyes devoid of warmth. They were both jailers and caretakers, enforcing discipline with brutal efficiency. There was no room for rebellion here, defiance was met with swift and merciless punishment. Yet, despite the fear and the chains, a fragile spark of resistance flickered within me. I clung to memories of my village, the smell of earth after rain, the sound of my mother's voice singing as she worked the fields. These echoes of a life long lost were my sanctuary, a secret refuge in the heart of captivity. Each day, as I moved deeper into the palace's labyrinth, I understood more clearly the machinery of power that shaped my fate. This was a world where boys like me were chosen not for who we were, but for the roles we could play in maintaining an empire's image of strength and grace. Our bodies were trophies, our spirits the price paid for the emperor's grandeur. The journey here had stripped away everything familiar, the palace would strip away more. But beneath the surface, beneath the layers of servitude and silence, I held onto a sliver of hope, a hope that one day, somewhere beyond these walls, freedom might still exist. The palace's grandeur is a cruel facade, draped in silk and gold, masking the iron grip of control that binds us within these walls. After my arrival, I was purchased by a high-ranking official, a man whose wealth and status loom as large as the marble pillars that surround his chambers. His name is whispered among the servants with both fear and reverence, yet for me, he is simply the master whose favor determines my survival. His household is a gilded prison, where opulence and oppression coexist in an uneasy balance. The air inside is thick with the scent of incense and perfumed oils, a stark contrast to the coldness I feel beneath the surface. Every corner is watched, by eunuchs, guards, and the ever-present eyes of those who wield power. There is no privacy, no escape from scrutiny. Within this world, the rules are unforgiving. Movement is measured, speech is limited, and every action is weighed for its loyalty and usefulness. The hierarchy is rigid, the master's whims dictate the fates of those beneath him. Among us, the concubines, there is no camaraderie, only silent competition. Each boy masks his fear with a fragile veneer of composure, hoping to catch a glimmer of favor that might shield him from the harsher realities. I meet others like myself, boys and young men marked by similar losses and scars. Some bear the weight of broken spirits, others hide cleverness behind their silence. We form fragile bonds, moments of shared understanding in an existence defined by isolation. These connections are fleeting, yet they offer brief respite from the relentless demands placed upon us. The palace's entertainments reveal a darker side beneath its cultured surface. Grand banquets and symposiums, celebrated for their poetry and music, often dissolve into displays of power where concubines are called upon to perform acts that erode our dignity and health. The emperor's desires are unpredictable and absolute. Refusal is not an option, compliance is survival. I recall the first time I was summoned to the emperor's presence. The corridor leading to his chambers seemed endless, lined with statues that bore silent witness to countless others like me. My heart pounded not with hope, but with the cold certainty that I was no longer a person but an object arranged for display. The emperor's gaze was appraising, detached, as if measuring my worth against some inscrutable standard. In the days that followed, I learned to anticipate the nuances of court life, when to speak, when to remain silent, and which gestures might earn a fleeting smile or a nod. The eunuchs enforced discipline with ruthless efficiency. Punishments were common, meted out for the smallest misstep, a reminder that we existed solely for the pleasure and service of others. Yet, beneath the surface of this polished cruelty, there was a paradox. The empire, renowned for its refined arts and intellectual pursuits, indulged in a system that perpetuated suffering and degradation. The same hands that composed poetry also commanded the subjugation of boys like me. The contradiction was stark, a testament to the complex tapestry of power and morality woven through the court. Despite the hardships, I found moments of quiet resistance. In whispered conversations hidden from watchful eyes, we shared stories of our pasts, clinging to fragments of identity that the palace sought to erase. These small acts of defiance were lifelines, preserving a sense of self amid the relentless push toward conformity. The days blurred into months, and I became adept at masking pain with obedience. The bruises beneath my robes and the ache in my limbs were hidden behind a practiced calm. I learned to read the subtle shifts in expression, the unspoken commands that shaped every interaction. Survival demanded not only endurance but cunning. As I moved through the palace's labyrinthine corridors, I observed the intricate dance of power among the courtiers and eunuchs. Alliances formed and dissolved like smoke, each participant seeking advantage in a game where human lives were tokens to be wagered. In this environment, trust was a luxury none could afford. I also witnessed the toll this existence took on others. Some succumbed to despair, their eyes hollow and bodies broken by endless service. Others developed a hardened shell, their spirits dulled but unyielding beneath the surface. I saw moments of cruelty inflicted by those who themselves were trapped in the system, a cycle of suffering perpetuated by fear and necessity. The palace was a place where identity was a fragile thing, constantly threatened by erasure and appropriation. Names were replaced by titles, histories were forgotten. Yet, even in this darkness, the human spirit found ways to endure. Through shared glances, whispered words, and stolen moments of kindness, we maintained a fragile thread of humanity. Each day was a battle, not only against external forces but against the creeping numbness that threatened to consume me. I grappled with conflicting emotions, fear, anger, resignation, and a persistent longing for freedom. These feelings were dangerous in this place, where vulnerability could be exploited and punished. Still, I held on to a quiet hope, a belief that beneath the surface of this oppressive world, there was a part of me that remained untouched. It was this hope that sustained me during the darkest hours, a flickering flame against the encroaching shadows. In the Emperor's court, where beauty and power were commodities, I became both object and observer, a witness to a world that celebrated art and intellect while perpetuating cruelty. The paradox was a constant reminder of the complexity of human nature and the depths to which ambition and desire could drive an empire. As I navigated this perilous existence, I understood that my survival depended not only on obedience but on learning the unspoken rules of the palace. I became attuned to the rhythms of power, the subtle cues that dictated favor and punishment. In this world, knowledge was as vital as strength. The bonds I formed with others like me were my sanctuary. Together, we shared memories of lives before captivity, stories that nourished our spirits and defied the palace's attempts to erase our pasts. These connections were fragile but precious, a testament to the resilience of the human heart. Though the path ahead was uncertain, I resolved to endure, to adapt, and to preserve the essence of who I was beneath the layers of servitude. The palace might claim my body, but it could not wholly extinguish the spirit that lived within. I learned quickly that survival within these cold stone walls demanded more than mere obedience. It required a mask, carefully constructed facade that concealed pain and fear beneath a surface of compliant calm. Every day, I rehearsed the roles expected of me, crafting a silent obedience that dulled questions and concealed the turmoil inside. The palace's cruelty was systematic, rooted in tradition and power, accepted without question by those who profited and those who feared. To endure, I became a student of subtlety. I watched the flicker of a patron's eyes, sensed the shift in a eunuch's tone, and learned to anticipate commands before they were spoken. This mental fortitude was a shield, protecting what little remained of my spirit from shattering under relentless pressure. Pain and humiliation were constant companions, yet I devised ways to soften their blows, tucking away memories like forbidden treasures. In the quiet hours, away from prying eyes, small acts of defiance kindled hope within our hidden community. We exchanged stories in whispers, tales of distant villages and forgotten freedoms, each narrative a lifeline that tethered us to who we once were. Tokens, simple objects smuggled or stolen, passed hand to hand, symbols of identity and resistance, fragile yet potent reminders that we were more than property. Despite these flickers of rebellion, the palace's machinery was relentless. The cruelty was not random but deliberate, designed to fracture bonds and enforce submission. I came to understand that the system thrived on isolation, breaking us down until we were shadows of ourselves, pliant and unseen. The eunuchs, guards, and officials were cogs in this brutal apparatus, enforcing rules that crushed spirit as surely as they disciplined bodies. Within myself, a bitter conflict brewed. I battled the creeping numbness that threatened to consume every feeling, every memory. Yet beneath that numbness, fragments of my past life, sunlit fields, my mother's laughter, the taste of fresh fruit, persisted like embers beneath ash. These memories were both a comfort and a torment, reminding me of a freedom that seemed impossibly distant. I observed how others coped. Some surrendered entirely, their eyes hollow and bodies broken. Others cultivated cunning, learning which battles to fight and which to endure. A few became distant, their inner lives locked away behind stoic expressions. We were all prisoners, but each carried different wounds and strategies for survival. The palace's culture was one of contradiction. In public, it exalted refinement, art, and worship of beauty. Behind closed doors, it perpetuated acts of cruelty that belied its cultivated image. The courtiers and officials who praised poetry and philosophy were often the same men who ordered punishments or exploited our vulnerability. This duplicity deepened my understanding of power's corrosive reach. Yet, even amid this darkness, humanity found ways to endure. The briefest exchange of a knowing glance, a shared breath in a crowded room, became acts of solidarity. In these moments, we reclaimed fragments of agency, asserting that we were alive, aware, and capable of resistance. These quiet rebellions sustained us in ways that defied the empire's design. I learned to conceal my inner turmoil beneath a calm exterior, playing the role of the perfect servant. Anticipating needs before they were voiced became a survival tactic, a way to avoid punishment and gain fleeting favor. Yet with every act of compliance, a part of me withered, replaced by a hollow efficiency that numbed the pain but dulled the soul. Inside the palace, cruelty was a language spoken fluently by all, a code that maintained order through fear. I saw how the emperor's whims rippled through the hierarchy, setting the tone for behavior and discipline. No one was immune, even the eunuchs bore scars, some visible, others etched invisibly in their demeanor. The system's cruelty was not just physical but psychological. Isolation was enforced meticulously, severing connections that might foster solidarity. Our identities were stripped away, replaced by assigned names and titles, erasing histories and forging anonymity. This erasure was a weapon, wielded to prevent rebellion and enforce submission. In rare moments of solitude, I grappled with the question of who I was beneath the layers imposed upon me. The palace sought to erase me, but memory persisted stubbornly. I clung to the hope that beneath the surface, a kernel of resistance remained, waiting for a chance to ignite. This awareness sharpened my understanding of the palace's oppressive machinery. The cruelty was a tool of control, deliberately maintained to ensure that power remained unchallenged. I saw how fear was cultivated and wielded, how hope was suppressed to prevent the spark of rebellion. Yet, within me, hope flickered, fragile but unextinguished. It was a quiet defiance, a refusal to be wholly consumed. It whispered that the chains binding me were not absolute, that identity and dignity could survive even here. This hope was a secret treasure, guarded fiercely against the darkness surrounding me. The palace was a world apart, a place where beauty was prized and exploited, where youth was harvested and discarded. It was a realm of paradox, where culture and cruelty intertwined, and where survival demanded a constant negotiation between submission and resistance. I became adept at this negotiation, balancing obedience with subtle acts of defiance, masking despair with calm. Each day was a test of endurance and cunning, a delicate dance on the edge of ruin and survival. In this perilous existence, I sought to preserve the essence of who I was, even as the palace sought to remake me in its image. The flickering hope within me was not just for survival but for something beyond, perhaps freedom, perhaps a return to a life remembered only faintly. It was this hope that sustained me, a quiet flame in the depths of captivity, a reminder that even in the darkest places, the human spirit can endure. Years have passed since I first entered these walls, a boy torn from a sunlit village and molded into a shadow of obedience. Youth, once a vibrant flame within me, has dimmed, its light flickering faintly beneath layers of servitude and silence. The passage of time is marked not by celebrations or milestones, but by the gradual erosion of hope and the tightening grip of uncertainty. I sense the shifting tides within the household, whispers among eunuchs and servants hinting at my fading usefulness. The favor I once sought now feels like a distant memory, replaced by the cold indifference reserved for those who no longer serve a purpose. The future is a murky expanse, filled with the dread of exile, obscurity, or worse. One day, a new boy arrives, fresh-faced and trembling, his eyes wide with the same fear and confusion that once consumed me. His presence stirs memories long buried, the innocence lost, the family left behind, the promises broken. I see myself in him, a reflection of the past and a reminder of the endless cycle that binds us all. In a rare moment away from watchful eyes, I approach him quietly, offering a whispered word of comfort and a hidden token, a small charm, worn smooth by years of handling. It is a symbol, a secret passed hand to hand, carrying the weight of hope and the unspoken possibility of resistance. Through this gesture, I entrust him with a fragment of strength, a fragile spark to carry forward. Our exchange is brief but profound, a silent covenant between captives bound by fate. I see in his eyes a flicker of something beyond fear, perhaps courage, perhaps defiance, and it kindles a faint warmth within me. Though my own path may be nearing its end, I find solace in the thought that this boy's journey has just begun. As I watch him disappear into the labyrinth of the palace, I reflect on the cyclical nature of our suffering. Generation after generation, boys like us are taken, shaped, and discarded by an empire that thrives on exploitation. Our stories, though silenced, echo through time, a testament to resilience amid oppression. The parallels to other histories are unmistakable, countless lives erased in the name of power, beauty, or survival. Our experience is not unique but part of a broader human tragedy, one that continues beneath the surface of civilization's gleaming facade. Recognizing this truth is uncomfortable, yet necessary, if change is ever to take root. I hold on to the hope that by remembering, by bearing witness, we honor those who suffered in silence. Their lives, once invisible, gain voice through the telling of stories like mine. It is a quiet rebellion, a refusal to let the past be forgotten or repeated without reckoning. In these final moments, I am neither victim nor hero, but a bearer of memory, a thread woven into the tapestry of countless others who endured what no child should. The weight of this legacy is heavy, yet it carries the promise that our pain need not be in vain. Though I face an uncertain fate, whether exile, obscurity, or worse, I embrace the knowledge that I have passed on more than survival. I have passed on hope, a secret flame to illuminate the darkness for those who come after. The boy who arrived today will carry this torch forward, and through him, the silent lives of many will continue to whisper their truths. In honoring our stories, perhaps someday the cycle will break, and the cost of power will be reckoned with. For now, I remain in the shadows, a witness to a world that demands much and gives little. But within me burns the quiet assurance that memory is resistance, and hope, even when faint, is not extinguished.